Okay, I think other people will come in. I'll just get them in as they come. So I just wanted to share with you. So welcome everybody. Hope you're having a great start to 2023. Hope January was a very successful month and that you'll have a lot more successful months after this one. What I wanted to do today is just share some ideas and some reasons why we need to be more outcome focused. And if you ever attended any of my sessions, you know that I talk about outcomes a lot and the importance of outcomes. And what I thought I'd do, I just packaged together here for you 4 different reasons why you should be more outcome focused. And what I'd like you to do is think about this for your own particular situations. And oftentimes, you can't just immediately copy what other people say or do, but try to think about how you would apply this to your own life and your own situation, and what could you maybe take a little bit more focus on the outcomes than you are doing it today. So welcome to those that are joining. I'll add as we go. So we're going to talk about 4 reasons why it's important for you to be more outcome focused, and the 4 reasons why you should be outcome focused in this way. Okay, so we'll take the 4. We'll give you a little summary at the end, and then I'll open it up if we have time at the end to take any questions and comments about the things I've shared here. Now, the first reason here is you cannot hit a target you do not have, right? If you don't have a clear target, you certainly can't hit it. It's so important to have some goals and some clear goals in front of you. And there's a difference between a goal and a plan. A lot of times people think, well, I have to know exactly how to get there to set this goal. By definition, you don't know exactly how to get there. It's a goal. You're going to figure it out along the way. If you knew how to get there, it would be a plan. So I think we have to give ourselves more goals and not just focus on the plans, because it's the goals that pull the potential outside, that's inside of us, outside and into action. And that's what we really need. We need to really have clear goals. Now, I often ask this when I'm doing my sessions, and why don't I ask it here? Let me ask you this question. How much of what you do every day, what percentage of what you do every day is driven by your conscious mind? If you attended my sessions, you probably heard this before, but you haven't. What percentage do you think is driven consciously versus subconsciously? Type your answer into the chat function. What do you think is driven consciously every day, what we do consciously all the time? What percentage of our behaviors is driven consciously? Type your answer into the chat. Let's see what everybody says. Okay. So you have 20, 10, 5, 5. Yeah, good. Very good numbers today. Sometimes they get like 60, 80, whatever. Yeah, would you believe it's only 2 to 4%? And I'll prove it to you with one single question. Can you tell me your next thought? Right? You can't. It just pops in. So what I really found with the most successful people is they make their goals or their target a dominant thought. If it's a dominant thought, they're going to see more ways to make it happen. If it's very clear and there's some motion behind it as well, and it's repeated in their head and very dominant with a lot of emotion, they're going to see more ways to make it happen. Think about it. If you have children, think back when you were pregnant or your partner was pregnant with the very first child, right? When you went around the city, you see all these baby buggies. Now, 6 months before that, you never saw them because you weren't focused on that. Same way when you buy a new car. You buy a new car, you're happy for about a week. Then you start to get pissed off. I thought I had a unique car. Everybody's got it. The thing is, you cannot hit a target you do not clearly have. And if you haven't made your targets or your goals, the biggest of outcomes, very clear in your mind, you're not going to hit it. Now, here's something I found working with very successful people, is they figured out what's the best way to remind themselves all the time of what those big goals are. Because our tendency is, if we have too many goals and everything, or too many things we need to do, our tendency, human nature, is to take the easiest ones, knock them off, and not focus on the bigger things. And it's what we do each day, focus on the bigger things, that really makes things happen. So my recommendation for you, and think about this, is not only create these and define these clear goals for yourself, but find the best way to remind yourself of those goals. Some people put them on their phone. Some people put it on Post-it notes at their desk. Some people put a Post-it note or a picture on the mirror when they're putting makeup on or shaving in the morning. But all I know is that you have to find your way to remind yourself. The more the most important things are top of mind, the more you're going to see more ways to go make it happen. And so I think that phrase is so, so important. You cannot hit a target you do not have. You cannot repeatedly make progress on a target you do not make a dominant thought or is top of mind. So we really do need clear goals. Now, the best leaders create a vision that people can see themselves as part of it. And that's why the biggest goal for a company is that vision, where people see themselves a part of it, and they're going to use more of their potential to go make that happen. Okay. So think about that. Your goals, your vision, whatever, it has to be very, very clear in your head. And you have to be reminding yourself of it in all different ways and take the best ways. I tell you, there's a reason why they call it personal productivity. It's personal. You can't copy other people's ways to do some things. Sometimes if you see them doing something, a key habit or so forth, you'd say, well, why is the reason they have that habit? And you make your own habit that gets the same results. So, oftentimes it's taking the inspiration of others and making it your own. So the first reason here is you cannot hit a target you do not have. You got to have very clear the bigger outcomes, the goals, the vision, and make it a dominant thought in the way that works best for you. Now, if you're a leader, you have to make it a dominant thought in all different types of ways to try and match your people. That's why leaders often talk about the vision with different types of stories and examples, with different images and so forth, all that are very linked in building a complete picture of where they want to take the company. And so it becomes a clearer target. And the last thing about this one is the more you make it repetitive and clear in people's minds, and the more you add emotion to it, the more they're going to see more ways to go make it happen, just as you will see more ways to go make it happen. So reason number one is you got to have clear goals. You cannot hit a target you do not have. Now, reason number two is you won't see faster ways to achieve it unless you keep that outcome in front of you about what you want to achieve. The bigger ones can be milestones and different things, but if you're not very clear on the outcome, you're not going to find faster ways to go make it happen. Whenever the outcome is not clear in our heads, we tend to do what we did yesterday, the day before. You see, we're all inherently lazy, right? If we have a very clear outcome, we're going to find the shortest way there. We're going to try to find the shortest way there. But if that outcome is not clear, our tendency is to just do what we did yesterday, the day before. We don't see ways to go make it happen. In other words, a clear outcome will trigger the creativity within us. Now, I want to just mention a couple things here. First is that the outcome alone doesn't trigger the creativity. An outcome, a clear outcome, needs some type of constraint. And then you get creative, right? Think about this. If you have no constraints, there's no need to get creative. You have unlimited time, money, whatever, resources. There's no need to be creative. It's when you have a constraint. It's interesting, when I have to do my bookkeeping or something for my business and everything, I always say, I got 20 minutes. What can I do in 20 minutes? I put a time constraint on it. And it's interesting, there's some music, classical music that's been engineered for different types of moods, and there's one for productivity. So I put this classical music on, productivity, give myself 20 minutes, and how much can I get done in that way? I found more creative ways to get those things done because I had a very, very clear outcome and I had some type of constraint. Successful leaders often give constraints to their people, even though they don't necessarily have to sometimes. They'll give people less time, less money. Sometimes they'll give them a resource that might not be the one they wanted, but this person needs some development. So, I often did that the same. I said to my project leaders, I know you wanted this person. I'm going to give you this other one because they need some development. This is your constraint. Now, how to figure out to make it happen. And what I found with very, very successful people is those constraints or those obstacles is just motivation to go make it happen. But the motivation to go make it happen is only there if your outcome is specific and it drives you to figure out faster ways to go make it happen. It's very, very difficult to get creative about something vague. You're certainly not going to make progress that way. Okay. So the second reason here is really, giving yourself a specific outcome that's in front of you that's going to require you to think about faster ways to go get there. So sometimes these outcomes are bigger things, and then you're thinking about the progress, daily progress you mean. Sometimes they're a milestone. What do I need to complete by the end of the week? Or what do I need to achieve by the end of the day? So here's a tip. All those not so quite important outcomes, block off an hour to knock them off and see how much you can accomplish in just that hour. You'd be amazed after the first number of times how quickly you're getting through some of those non-important things so you have more time on the important. Okay. So second thing here, second reason is you'll never get to see faster ways to go make it happen unless that outcome is specific enough. And also you give yourself some constraints around it too, because that really drives the creativity to go faster. Now, the third one is you won't get others engaged to help you unless you share these outcomes and make it visible to other people. And that's really, really important, because unless you create an outcome where others can see their role in making it happen, and you make it clear enough for them to see that, you're not going to get the help from them. In other words, why collaborate if we don't know why we need to collaborate? In other words, what we're trying to target, we're trying to achieve together. One of the most important things in terms of yourself and also in terms of leading people and getting people to help you is if you're not sharing that outcome, you're not making it clear, you're not painting a picture where people can see themselves in it, you're just not going to get the help from others. And there's an old saying by, I think, Zig Ziglar. It says, you can get in your life everything you want as long as you're helping others get what they want too. So if you can link other people's outcomes of what they want to the outcome you want to achieve, you've got a lot of success there. But the key thing there is being able to share those key outcomes in ways that other people can see it's their benefit to help you, or they see that common target that they can work towards. Now, people with a shared outcome will not only help you, but they'll help each other to go make it happen. Okay. When people have a shared outcome and certain areas are a little bit behind, they have a tendency to now help each other, because their success is not measured on what they're doing in their area. It's measured on achieving the outcome together. If you've been to any of my sessions, I tell a story about the airplanes and, repairing airplanes. And they had a common target repairing those airplanes, and they took such ownership of that, they painted their team names on the side of the airplanes. In other words, when you get other people feeling pride in achieving that common goal together, you have a very strong team that's going to collaborate. But you won't get people's engagement unless you can make these clear targets visible and share them. And, if you think back to reason number one, try to make it, on the most important things, a dominant thought for people. Because if it's a dominant thought, they'll see more ways to go make it happen. Okay. So that's the third one. So if we keep thinking about what we talked about, we said first, having a very, very clear goal, the biggest of the outcomes, that's going to use your potential to go make it happen. Getting very specific on the outcomes, which will drive your creativity to go forward faster. sharing the outcomes so that you can get others involved as a team and other people to help you. Now, let's talk about the fourth one. And the fourth one is something that is really used every day, or it should be used every day. In other words, you often waste yours and everyone's time if you don't set a clear outcomes for your meetings or your conversations, okay? The biggest issue I see in business is that we're always setting up meetings with, we need a meeting to discuss, right? You probably heard that expression a lot. It's not we need a meeting to discuss, it's we need a meeting to agree or align on, because there's only three outcomes for meetings. You need an agreed decision, you need an agreed action, or you need alignment, because meetings are about progress. And if you can make progress without a meeting, you don't need a meeting. So a better way to describe, and you can change a culture within just a few weeks. If you get everybody starting to say, we need a meeting to agree or align on versus we need a meeting to discuss, because the topic of discussion is too vague, right? And also think about this, whenever you create a vague target, people never ever get prepared to come to that meeting if you create a vague target for the meeting. If you have a specific target for the meeting, you're going to have people come prepared. Your best people come prepared because they always like to show off anyway. So they know, if you know what you're going to try to decide, agree, or take action on, they'll come better prepared. So think about this. If you attend a very poorly run meeting, what are you usually thinking and feeling? Yeah, you're probably thinking waste of time. Can you afford people who come to your meetings to feel your meetings are a waste of time? No way, because that's the biggest way to demotivate people. What I found, if you're poor at running meetings, other departments will only send who's available to your meetings and not their best people. Here's what I found working in a corporation. The more I ran better, successful meetings, the more I played good, positive politics with my peers and everybody else, I could get their best people into my meeting. The best people contribute to the best solutions. And when they go back to their departments, people are actually listening to them. However, when someone who's just available comes to your meetings and they go back to their departments, no one's listening to them. So I take this a little bit more important in your mind. The better you drive conversations in meetings, the more outcome focused you are, the less you waste people's time, the more power you have within any organization that you're working within, okay? And if you're known for running good meetings, people are want to come to your meetings. If you're known for running poor meetings, they're not want to come, okay? And also a tip here, anytime you're driving meetings, or you're not driving the meeting and you're part of meetings, the number one thing, even if you disagree with certain things that are happening, always disagree in a way that you're moving the conversation forward, okay? Not that you're just stopping it and going backward. So I'd say is if you disagree, offer up something that moves the conversation forward. And the more you have a clear outcome, the more you can direct people towards where we need to be and where we need to get to. And you have a way to facilitate meetings in much more powerful ways. So remember this, the better phrase to use in meetings is not we need a meeting to discuss, but we need a meeting to agree or align on, okay? You're going to get people come prepared more often. But the only thing too, it's going to put pressure on you because you're going to have to be clear as to what you want from this meeting, where sometimes you're just calling it because, well, I think I need something, but you're not clear on what you want. You know, an agenda is really a list of discussion items. And what I found, if you have to put an agenda, you got to put the outcome next to each point. And the other thing I would say is put a time limit under each of those, because unless you put a time limit, everybody goes all over the place. And the third tip around meetings is don't put your difficult topic at the end because you'll never get to it. Put the difficult topic first and deal with it right away. And then the other ones are easy to deal with anyway. So I just wanted to give you this ideas up front so you can think about for yourself. Now, I want to do is share a summary with you, and then I'll shut the slides off, open it up for any questions. But here's the summary of the four reasons I talked about in an action way about what will help you to be even more successful. One is setting clear goals, making it a dominant thought. And the biggest power behind goals, it's going to require you and others to use more of your potential. Okay. When you're using your potential, that's the greatest energy in life, because when we're growing and actually achieving something that we originally might not have thought that we could achieve. Okay. An interesting comment I heard one time is, would you like to have on your tombstone when you die, your name and below it, potential 50% used, right? So our goal should always be to use as much of the potential we have in there. And we need goals that's going to challenge us to use it. The second thing is driving specific outcomes. Without those specifics, without it clear and specific, we'll never be as creative. Without constraints around that, we'll never get really the creativity out of us to do things faster. The third is we got to share those outcomes. We need to, if we want to get more help from others, if we want people to collaborate between themselves too, we need to continually share it, make it top of mind if it's the really important ones for people, and, make it visible as much as you can. The last one, number 4, is set clear meeting outcomes, specific ones. We need to agree or align on, actions, decisions, it's alignment. The more productive conversations we have, the more it saves us time and others time, and the more influence and power we'll have within any organization if we're able to really run really effective conversations and meetings. So that's about 23 minutes or so of the different thing I wanted to share. So let me just stop the sharing here a second and open it up. Anybody have comments, questions on the things we covered here on why it's important to have an outcome focus? So I'll open it up. You can just open up your mic, turn your video on. Anything I can answer or any comments you'd like to make? So we have a quiet bunch here today. Okay, let me ask you a question. Oh, go ahead, Raquel. You have a hand up?
Yes.
Hello. How you doing?
Mark. Fine, thank you. And thank you so much for this great presentation and the topics shared with us. I have a question that it is a mix regarding the topics that is being discussed here. And my question for you, Mark, is when you have all these topics in mind and you apply in a meeting all the topics mentioned here, but even under that circumstances, when you see that the people with you don't are so quiet, so you have this horrible silence, no one share their thoughts, their opinion. What is your advice in this particular situation?
Yeah, hey, that's a great question, because, the one thing I didn't like in my meetings were spectators, right? However, some people are shy, introverts, they don't like to speak up. Some cultures you work with, people are shy, they generally don't like to speak up in that way. What I used to do often, especially because I was leading virtual organizations, is if I had an issue and something we needed to discuss, I would send out a note and say, give me 3 ideas around this, or give me 3 problems that you think we have in this area. Give me 3 issues or something. What I do is I would, or when I was longer in my career, I get my secretary to cut and paste those all into an Excel. I do a quick sort with everybody's name, and I show everybody's input to drive and start the conversation. Because now I can take that, and if a person's name's next to it, I could say, could you explain a little bit more about this issue? And I can force people to participate but everybody's ideas are out of the room. The biggest problem you have in business today is that you don't have the brain power in the room and ideas, is that they don't speak up.
Exactly.
So I use the pre-input to also facilitate the dialogue within the meeting as well. And so
Good.
it forced everybody to contribute. If they didn't contribute, I also showed that they didn't contribute. The next time they're going to contribute because they don't want to look like they didn't support it.
First, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good advice. Thank you, Mark, again.
Any other questions, comments from anybody? Okay, so let me ask a question
Hello.
of everybody.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
Mark.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Hi,
Rui
Rui.
Moraes speaking. Just one thing that caught my attention. You mentioned that it's important sometimes to have some challenges to work around, to stimulate the creativity and so on.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel it's hard sometimes to balance those challenges because in a way we should try to make things as simple as possible to achieve the outcome, right?
Yeah.
How is there any techniques or how would you balance that those challenges with make things also as simple as possible to achieve the outcome?
Yeah, I'll
Because
tell you.
it can be overwhelming for some people. It depends
Yeah,
also
you
perhaps
don't
on
need
our
you don't two or three or four of them. You only need one of them that drives people to get creative. And the biggest one is we have all the time today in today's world. Everything needs to be done faster, right? So we have to challenge our people to do things in a faster way. And so I found that you only need one particular constraint that pulls the creativity out of people. So you don't give them 4 or 5 at once. You pick the one that will drive the most creativity in that situation. Might not always be the fastest. It might be something else that you put there. But I think you need at least some type of something that drives people to think differently. That's the key. It has to drive them to think different about what they're doing. Good.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments, questions? Michael.
Thanks for everything, Mark. Great stuff. Is there an almost guaranteed correlation between great outcome-focused communication and great actual outcomes?
Absolutely, right? Because without the communication, you just don't get people engaged. And I think the biggest issue of that I found today is that, things are running so fast, you just don't have the time to communicate like you did in the past. You've got to be much more impactful in a shorter amount of time. In fact, to be honest, the number one skill I think we need to build in people is the ability to be concise when they need to be. But concise in a powerful way. Concise meaning you're getting the message across in a way that people understand, but also that understanding, that feeling goes beyond that 5 or 10 minutes that you had with them. So I think that's the real key. And quite honest, you can't communicate an outcome that's not clear for yourself.
So what's your number one concise tip on conciseness?
Number one conciseness is that if you're going into important meetings or other things, you've got to do your preparation, right? You got to be clear yourself for you to be concise in the moment. Because often the most impactful communication in a meeting is a spontaneous comment you make, to move something forward or whatever. But if you're not clear or prepared yourself, you'll take too long, you'll lose the impact and so forth. I found, I was tested. I'm not very smart. I'm a slow learner. However, I kept up with everybody else and sometimes in front of them because I did my preparation. Yeah.
So you do your thinking before the meeting?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Well, thanks everybody. We're at the bottom of the hour. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to share these. In a few minutes, you'll get the one pager, which is a summary of these things we talked about so that you have it all on one page there. And just remember the 4 of them, right? Clear goal, specific outcome, right? Share the outcome, and also, set meeting outcomes so that you have much more productive conversations. Thank you very much. Wishing you a very successful February and the rest of the year.